Welcome to the Endless Party. I'm one of the hosts, Elijah Armstrong.
And I'm your other host, Meg Armstrong.
Our podcast is dedicated to making life a party by striving to be better people, living by good values and strong principles.
So let's jump in. Oh, wow. It feels so good to say hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Endless Party.
The Endless Party. We're back and better than ever before.
Really, we are.
Seriously. And I will say, we have deeply missed this and you.
We've missed you guys so much.
Yeah.
And I know you're thinking, it's been 4 months. What have you been?
Where have you been?
What has been going on? Well, we're going to give you some details.
But not that much.
Not that much.
Because quite frankly, we are believers in minding your business.
Right. We're going to share.
To a certain extent.
Yes.
Right?
We're going to share as much information as we can to make the principles we're sharing make sense, but not go into the nitty gritty of what was going on. And I know you're thinking, dang, I really want to know.
Wow. What's the
going
tea?
on. Let me tell you,
spill the tea.
Everybody wants to know, and this is actually something that we haven't really
disclosed
spoke
to
about.
anybody.
No.
Yeah.
So, it seems like we're in the same place. This is actually a different wall.
Yeah.
You might be able to tell that the paint job's a little bit nicer.
We're in a better location.
We're in a way better location filming this, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just jump into a little bit of what's been going on.
For sure.
So we had been really good about filming in 2024, right? And with
like religious.
We were every week
to a T, bro.
To a T. And anyways, things started to happen, and we, in November, after our girl's first birthday, we just felt this impression that we needed to make some major changes in our lives.
Yeah.
And inevitably, what starts to happen is if you read good books, you end up following their principles. Shocking, I know. But Elijah and I feel like have talked about this time and time again, that who you associate with matters.
Yeah.
And I think because our closest friends were the people, the authors of our books, we inevitably kind of became like them. And in November, we had this pretty much awakening where we were like, we need to make some major changes in our life, and we need to do it now. So the changes that we made weren't even planned.
No, it was one day we finally were just like, this is it. We gotta
do something now.
And I will just interject here too. So a big portion of what happened was we found out that opportunity should never be a coffin. And we actually heard that from one of my cousins recently.
Such a cool guy.
Such a good guy.
Cool,
very, very successful. And he just said that phrase while we were out to dinner with him. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly why we had to move. Like, we had this beautiful opportunity. And if you listen back to our previous podcasts, it was incredible. Like, we had this golden opportunity to run a very successful company and go on and do great things, especially in terms of business and finance.
Yes.
Turns out that was a coffin. Yeah. That realistically, it had nothing to do with the dreams and goals that we had for ourselves, but everything to do for other people's dreams and goals.
Right.
So first principle number 1 is you should recognize that opportunity should never, ever be a coffin.
Right.
That you should make sure that what you are pursuing, or that this treasure chest that people are promising you, is truly what you want.
Right. I kind of want to interject too and say, regardless of all of that, we know that our time spent in Idaho was where we were supposed to be.
No, it was,
and it definitely was where we were supposed to be. I know it was where we were supposed to have our girls, where we were supposed to spend the first year of their life.
Well, and I even go a step further, right? We went there for the opportunity, but what turned out was the lessons we learned were more precious than the 2 years that we were there.
Yes.
Right? So these are lessons that, quite frankly, I hope to never have to relearn.
I agree.
But because of what we learned and what we've taken from those 2 years, I feel like we have 10 years worth of life experience.
Right. So I kind of want to get back to the story because I feel like there's a lot of holes. Basically, our girls turn 1, and I feel like for Elijah and I, that was just a big landmark in our lives because we were like, wow, it's been a whole year already since they've been born, and we're not living the life that
we want to
live and that we know that we should be living. Mm-hmm. And so they turned 1, and that caused a lot of reflection. And it also caused us to think back to the principles and the values that we had learned and really held dear. And we're like, wow, actually, we are not living up to the things that we so wholeheartedly believe in. Right. And so within a day, we decided that we were going to leave Idaho, and we literally were homeless for a month.
Yeah, craziest thing about this, right? So, because of the 2 years that we were there, we completely depleted our savings.
Yep.
And because of that, we were absolutely at rock bottom. We had no money.
No job.
No job.
No promise of a job.
No promise of a job.
No house.
No house. No place to live. Nothing. Right? And so here I am, the husband and father of this wonderful woman, but also our 2 baby girls. And I'm like, wow. Like, if there was a rock bottom, like, we hit it.
We were so low.
But that to be said, having hit rock bottom, it's not as bad as you think it is.
It's actually not that bad.
And quite frankly, there's 2 things that I want to interject here. One, there are incredible people that will bend over backwards to help you in this life, whether they be dear friends, whether they be dear family members. There are so many people that I can look back over the month of November and really, really thank God every day for. And that's incredible. So lean on the people that you can. Lean on the people that you can truly trust with everything in your life, but also that truly have the best interests at heart for you and your family. So that, but also when all else fails and everything in terms of the world is rock bottom, like, there's one person that will always be there. There's one person that will never leave your side, and there's one person that has been even lower than your lowest lows, and it is waiting there at the bottom to lift you back up to the highest of highs. And I think you all know who I'm talking about. Jesus. And he's the reason that we even made through anything.
Yes.
He's the reason that we're even podcasting again. And he's really the reason why you can and truly will endure, so long as you just rely on him.
There was this speech I listened to building up to us leaving, and it was by Dallas Jenkins. I don't know if you know him. He's the director of The Chosen. Mm-hmm. And anyways, he shares his story of how he turned his failures into success. And one of the quotes that just kept repeating in my head, like, over and over as we were going through this, is he said in his speech, he was like, I got to a point where I didn't care what my tomorrow looked like, as long as I knew that I was in God's hands. And so as we were making this huge adjustment, literally going forward with only faith, that's all we had. All we had was each other in faith. That's what kept repeating in my mind over and over. It's like, I think it's what happened to Elijah, and I was like, actually, I don't really care what my tomorrow looks like, unless, like, because God is there, and we could feel him so close to us. Like, we were in, like, the depths of humility, and it was actually a really cool place to be, and it's actually something that I remind myself to, like, be in constantly. Right. Because I was so humble that I was so close in my relationship with God, because he was directing my every moment and my tomorrow. And it was an amazing place to be. Like, rock bottom wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. It was filled with, like, the love of God and, like, just being so close to him because feelings were so tender.
No, absolutely. I think too, like, being at the depths of humility, as Meg mentioned, there was this understanding that we had all these problems that we had to face, right? Like, reality set in that it was like, oh my gosh, like, we got a lot to figure out in a very short period of time. And it made us realize that if you have big problems, say big prayers.
Every principle that we had been talking about in the podcast is like, okay, like it's time to like live by these.
Yeah, it's time to implement them in our own life. Because, and I can genuinely tell you right now on this podcast that we have. And it is freakishly hard to do every single time. These principles aren't easy to live by any means. They are very, very simple, but man,
so much better.
Man, they make it better. Les Brown has a quote that's beautiful, and it's, if you want, or if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. Which I don't agree with entirely, because if you do what is hard, I feel like your life will be easier, but it won't be easy. Nice. But I do agree with him that if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. Mm-hmm. Tooth and nail. But back to my point, I can genuinely say that me and Meg were on our knees every single evening together, crying in prayer for 15 to 20 minutes. And we just gave it all to God. And I can honestly tell you that our big problems were laid to rest because we said big prayers.
And we got big miraculous answers.
Well, big miraculous answers and big miraculous miracles.
Yes. I kind of want to shift into one of the things I really wanted to mention, which you already did, and that is just the majesty and marvelous truths about Jesus Christ that we learned through all of this. And so obviously we told you like all of the temporal issues that were going on, right? We were at rock bottom financially, all the things. But in the midst of all of this too, we were also facing a very deep, just psychological and emotional pain.
Yeah.
Through all of this too. Very deep, very piercing. And the only reason why I share this too is because we were in a place that was so dark, right? Mentally, we were broken, emotionally broken, financially broken. And as we turned these problems over to Christ, he took them once we gave them to him and healed us. And we came out without scar, and actually we came out better than before. And the things that have hurt us so deeply, they now don't even hurt. Like they're gone. There's not even a scar, right? And we can still think about those memories and the things that were so, tragic and painful, but they don't hurt anymore.
No. I don't know the lady's name. It was a Christmas devotional within our church, and she spoke about the Savior and the difference between healing and curing. And she says if you cure something, there's still...
You just come back to where you were.
Yes, that's what it was. She talks about how if you cure something, you come back to your original state.
So if you're sick with the flu and you're cured, you're now back to no flu-like symptoms like prior to your flu.
Right. And then she goes, but if you're healed from something, you become better after the healing has transpired than you were before you even were sick or injured.
Yes.
And so I think that's what's so cool is that's what happened with us in our own life, and that's what can happen with anybody that turns to the Savior, Jesus Christ. And I don't care what you've gone through, because we've gone through a lot. And I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything, but every single person that is listening to this podcast has big things in their lives that they have experienced. And I'm not going to ever say that mine is grander or bigger than yours. But what I can say is because of the things that I've experienced in my life and the things that Meg has experienced in her life, Jesus Christ does heal. He takes you from where you were, completely takes every pain, sorrow, injury, or wrongdoing that has ever been done to you, and completely transforms you into a new and better perfected being. And that's the testimony, the biggest testimony that we gained through all of this is the testimony of our Savior, Jesus Christ. And so if you learn anything from this podcast, especially this episode, the biggest thing that we learned is that no matter what you are experiencing in your life, Christ can take it and make it even better.
And I just want to say too, I think based on the events that we went through, the things we're not going into detail of, it was an event that the world will say you are never going to recover from. This is always going to this is going to hinder your life and your life's progress forever, and you will
Which
never
is a
recover.
lie.
And that's what I wanted to say. It's a lie. And even if you are feeling such deep hurt, and maybe even if you've done things that have caused others deep hurt, and you feel like you are hopeless, I promise you, if you give your pains and your broken heart to Christ, He will heal it. And you will be made whole again. And it really is that easy. And I think that's where our prideful minds, and mentalities get in the way. It is that easy. All you have to do is say that big prayer and say, I'm broken and I need help and I can't do this alone. And I have the faith that you will help me.
Well, here's the reality. So we confided in certain people, in friends, in people that we love. And some people were great, other people were not. So I will say this, be mindful of who you confide in, because there are very tender pieces of your soul that only very special people should be allowed access to. That being said, some of the people that we confided in were talking about the problems that you are experiencing aren't just to say your prayer and read your scripture type problem. And my wonderful wife here, hello, flat out was just like, no, that's exactly what it is. Because here's the reality. Even if your problems are big enough for therapy, which if they are, go get the help that you need, no problem. But who better to go through therapy with you than Jesus Christ himself?
He is the
master healer.
He knows how to heal
He's
your
the
heart
ultimate
better.
Therapist.
Go to him.
He's better than anybody, including Jordan Peterson.
Yes. He's better than any worldly help you can get.
100%.
Take it to him and be amazed at the miraculous nature of his healing.
Yes, and so your problems are say your prayers and read your scriptures problems. All problems are.
And if you're going through something big, that just means you need to say bigger prayers and spend more time in your scriptures.
Yes, and I'm not going to downplay it. If you have problems, go to the therapist.
Sure.
I'm never going to tell you that that's not a good thing to do. But I am going to tell you that reading your scriptures and saying your prayers is the number one thing that you should be doing.
I agree. And it's the number one thing that helped us get through this.
100%.
And has made us able to podcast 4 months later with the same enthusiasm and just lifestyle that we had 4 months ago.
100%.
So, one thing I wanted to talk about, one principle that I've also learned throughout this whole experience is that it's really important to learn to discern between right and wrong.
Yes.
And I think within each of us, I firmly believe that God's given us our moral compass and our conscience. And I think if you learn how to be in tune with that, then it becomes really easy to know what is right for your life and what isn't. We all know.
Deep down, you all know.
I just can't wrap my mind. I just think all people know deep down.
They do.
And I really don't think you can mask it. I don't think you can get past guilt.
Well, here's what's actually pretty funny about it. So Jordan Peterson, to bring him back up again, he actually brings up this topic of why he believes in God more than anything. And because people talk about atheists and agnostics or whatever. And he just goes, well, explain to me the little voice in the back of your mind that tells you what's good and what's bad. Explain to me the little voice in the back of your mind that tells you what's right and what's wrong. And he's like, explain it. He goes, because you inherently know. Always. And he goes, that to me depicts that there's a God. And it is, right? For Christians, we believe that it's the light of Christ and that we are all born with that. But it is so vitally important that you continue to listen to it, because eventually it just becomes a smaller and smaller voice. Especially if you keep doing the wrong thing, man. You got to just change your ways and do what's right.
Listen to the little voice, because when you do the right thing, I don't think life is necessarily easier, but things begin to fall into place. And just the like just knowing that you're making the right decision, like consciously just brings a higher power into your life and allows you to just live life fuller.
Yeah.
Like it's so nice now to be in this situation where I'm like before I feel like we were always like, okay, this is really great. These things are so good, but and then we'd list X, Y, and Z that we didn't like. But this is so good, and this is a really good thing. But there was always but. But now in this situation, it's like, wow, this is really good, and that's all
hard.
there is to it.
Too. Like,
it is hard.
Here's the reality that we even came from. So we've experienced these miracles over these past few months. And having experienced these miracles, God didn't just say, here's a miracle and here's every other miracle that you need for the rest of your life. It was, here's this miracle. Now you have to work really hard to see the other miracles that you want.
But he still gives them.
100%. But he does expect you to work.
Yes.
Like, we're in this situation now that we're in, and it's great, but we have to work, and we have to work really hard.
Yes.
Every day.
Yeah.
And it's worth it. And
totally
I'm not even going to shy away from work, because I think work should be your greatest companion in this life. But just because you experience one miracle, what I'm trying to say is, don't become complacent and think that all of a sudden everything's figured out and that you no longer have to put in effort, because the Lord loves effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so too. I just think something that I really learned from this too is like, yes, put in effort. Elijah and I put in tons of effort, but like, expect the miracle to be there.
Well, yeah, 100%. Like, you should expect your miracle.
Right.
But like, my point is, what did we have to do? We had to freaking leave.
Yeah, we had to do really hard things.
Right?
No,
like,
I'm not downplaying that.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah, that's what I just mean by it.
Oh yeah. So, I kind of want to explain like the miracles. Like, so within a week of leaving and being taken in by
uprooted in our life.
Yeah, and then being taken in, not having a home. Within a week we had a really great opportunity for a home.
Mm-hmm. And
we had a really great idea of where we were going to move our family and what we were going to do, and that was amazing.
Yeah, we had that. We had a few different jobs lined up. Like I said, I think what was cool about this is the miracle that we experienced from God, but then God allowed other people to be our miracle.
Yeah.
You know, he really played into our favor with so many wonderful people that we've met over our lifetime that really, really helped us out. And it was incredible.
Yeah. I think you should share the Prince of Egypt story. That's been one of our favorite movies in our house.
So, Meg grew up in this house. You should tell the background.
Okay, actually. I'll tell the story. So, my parents are fantastic, and they wanted to make sure that Sunday was
special.
A really special day in our house. So they suggested that we watch media that spoke more about God and that told just more of an inspiring message. Anyways, as kids, we had a big box TV and it wasn't a DVD player. What is it called? VHS. Sorry. VHS. When is the last time any of you put a VHS in? Okay, those are
ancient.
Those are ancient. Anyways, so every Sunday, my siblings and I would go to the big box TV and put in our favorite and really only VHS Sunday approved movie.
It's about the only animated movie
for kids that
met
my parents' criteria and all parties could feel good about, and that was the Prince of Egypt.
Such a banger of a film.
So every Sunday, I kid you not, every Sunday for like really 18 years of my life, probably not 18, but a solid like 13, I would give it 13 years, me and my siblings would watch this movie. Like, it's to the point where me and my siblings could
quote it.
Probably quote it from start to
word
finish.
For word, like every song lyric, every word of any of the characters.
All the songs.
They can quote it.
We can quote it.
Probably backwards.
Probably at any point.
It's impressive.
We've watched it so much. Okay. Anyways, we now are parents, and our babies.
We do the same thing.
Our babies are at the point where they will watch a solid probably 25 seconds of a show.
Yes, so unless it's a song.
Unless it's a song.
So if it's a song, they're like,
if it's a Sunday,
I'm gonna get down.
We're like, great, we have the perfect movie
Always
full of song, full of a good message, and it's the Prince of Egypt, which, if you don't know, is the story of Moses.
Yeah. So, first of all, if you haven't seen the film, go watch it. You can rent it on Amazon.
It makes me cry now.
You used to be able to watch it on YouTube. I tried to look today. It's no longer there. You have to rent it or buy it, which is a bummer. Super good. Okay. The animation is amazing. And I'm not even like a artist, you know? Anyways, so this story like almost made me cry when we moved to Utah and we put this film on for the first time, because Moses goes through this inner turmoil after he meets his actual sister in the streets. And she's like, hey, you're supposed to like deliver us from Egypt. And he's like, what are you freaking talking about, slave? And then all of a sudden he's like, go ask the man that you call father. And so he's like, what the freak? And then he leaves.
Bursts into song.
Yeah, burst into song. Well, no, he goes and sees his dad first.
Oh, yeah.
So he sees the Pharaoh, and then the Pharaoh shows him like, yeah, actually we like fed like babies of crocodiles and killed all of them because like the Hebrews were becoming too strong. Long story short, he starts singing this song. And he's like, this is my home. Like, I have everything that I could ever want. You know, I'm royalty. My father and mother and brother are so honorable and so noble and so great. And, like, this is all I ever wanted.
He is the sovereign prince of Egypt.
He's literally a prince of Egypt. And he packs up and leaves.
Everything he knows.
Not only everything that he knows, everything that he loves. And everyone that he loves. Because at the end of the day, he knew in his heart, back to what we were talking about at the beginning, of your conscience, that little voice that's telling you what's right and wrong, he knew it was wrong. And so he left. And the reason I even bring this up is all the relationships in your life, including your relationships with family members, if they aren't right, you need to leave. And that it was probably the biggest life lesson that I had to learn through these past 2 years is there are people in your life that are going to bless your life and benefit your life, and there are other people in your life that will not. And unfortunately, some of those people can be your family. And so I think it really resonated with me because I finally had to just go like, no, I gotta leave it all. I got to leave my very own home, and I got to like take charge of my own life. Now, I'm going to sidestep here because Moses eventually comes back to Egypt and he meets his brother, right? And unfortunately, his brother hasn't changed. If anything, his brother's gotten harder. And so we know their story, God sends all the things. That being said, there is redemption possible for members of your family. And I will never, ever, ever say that somebody cannot change and improve their own life. Not in my family, not in your family, not in anybody's family. Because if you have the courage to do what is right, follow your heart, follow the promptings that God is giving you, and cut ties of those relationships in your life, I guarantee something will change. Whether it be your own family or whether it be just you, something will change. And just like the Prince of Egypt and Moses ultimately changed and followed God. And unfortunately, his brother didn't. But his brother could have. That's all a choice. So what I'm trying to get at, one, is that the Prince of Egypt is such a banger show and you should go watch it. But more importantly, that you need to choose the harder right, even if it means leaving those that say they love you the most.
Yes, and that was a huge turmoil for us, but it was something that was really supported by the authors and the people who wrote the books that we really admire and that
100%.
speak of a life that we wanted.
Yeah.
So this decision wasn't made lightly.
No.
And it was really, really hard.
And no major decision in your life should be taken lightly. It should be with thought and prayer and study. But when you do find out that answer, you need to act.
Yeah.
Because you can't just continue to sit in the same situation that you're in.
And like Elijah was explaining earlier, the decision we made to leave our home in Idaho and all the people and all the things we loved, it didn't come without effort.
No.
And it came with a lot of tears. It came with a lot of heartbreak.
All the tears. All the heartbreak.
It came with so much hurt. But now, looking back at it 4 months later, we can see kind of the bigger picture and how it was the exact right thing that we needed to do
100%.
For us and our family.
Yeah. I think going through this experience, especially as a married couple, especially as our own little family, this is more so for married couples and especially those with kids. You have to make the ultimate decisions what is right for you and your family. Like your immediate family. And your immediate family becomes your spouse and your kids as soon as you're married. And that's really what it came down to for me and Meg is I think we left 3 days after our girls turned 1?
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 days after our girls turned 1 is when we decided to leave because that is when we realized this is what is best for our family. And we didn't just make that. I didn't just make that decision, and neither did Meg. No. Like even that conversation was hard. Even that conversation involved tears and emotion and conflict, even just with us. And then we finally came to the realization. We finally came to what's the word I'm looking for? A unanimous decision. Yes. I guess.
Yeah.
That this was right for us. And so that was the biggest thing with me is we both had this at the back of our mind working and just helping us to discern what was right and what was wrong. And then when we both came to that realization, it was like a no-brainer. And that's why we left the next morning. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty cool that you can even be that in tune, one with God, but two with your spouse.
Yeah. I think something I just want to highlight one more time is that miracles will happen when you expect them to. But then when they do happen, something that I've been really big on trying to just implement into my life is to not forget them.
Yeah.
And to revisit them every day so that I can be grateful for the opportunity that I have in front of me, even if it is hard.
Yeah.
And I think something that's so interesting is this is in the scriptures, this is just in everyday life. We are so quick to forget the miracles and the good things that God sends our way. Yeah. So quick to forget.
And the scriptures tell us to remember
all the time.
Because we always forget.
And because they do, and because I recognize this through this experience, one thing I actually have done is I have a miracle list. I wrote it out on paper, but mostly I wrote it out on paper so that it's in my head.
Yeah, it's more engraved.
And so every day I try to thank God in my prayers for the miracles He has sent my way and be grateful for them, because I just think it's a really good way to live. And so when things are still hard and we're putting in a lot of effort and maybe not quite where we hope to be, I can still be so grateful for what God has done and not forget Him, especially through this whole experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the one thing. Even I made reference to the beginning of this in the episode is I want to make sure I don't forget these life lessons because I do not want to have to repeat them.
I don't want to relive it.
And I think God actually has you repeat lessons if you don't learn it the first time.
I think so.
I mean, I say that from experience because I know there's countless life lessons that I've learned the hard way multiple times. Mm-hmm. But this is one that I don't want to. And really, I hope that when God teaches me something, I listen the first time so that we can be able to just become better. And I think part of what Meg is doing is the exact way that you should, is make a list. Make a miracle list. Make a gratitude list. Make lists of things that you are grateful for and the grace of God. And I think one of the things I want to make mention too is like gratitude increases your miracles. Like just by us making a point to say thank you to Heavenly Father, I know has increased the miracles that we've experienced in our life. I don't know why. Maybe it's just some scientific God thing, but it works.
You should be grateful.
You should be grateful. And there's a lot to be grateful for, at least in our life. And I could say the same for yours.
Yeah. There's another thing I wanted to mention. So this week, actually, my life changed. And it changed because I finally watched one of the greatest movies that I have been missing.
Watched it 2 times in a row.
Seriously? So Elijah puts it in, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, it sounds like we like watch movies all the time. Anyways, he puts it in, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna
I had seen this growing up.
I was like, this is not gonna be good, whatever. I'm like doing my workout, watching, and then I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, this is the greatest show I have ever seen. So we watch it that night, and I am just moved. It's over, and I'm like...
She could not stop talking about it.
I still can't stop talking about it. I was sitting there, and I was like, oh my goodness.
So we watched it. We watched it one night, right? And then we watched it again the next day.
That afternoon.
And then she's like, we need to watch it again.
I want to watch it a third time.
I'm like, this comes from your childhood of watching The Prince of Egypt every Sunday. Like, you have no problem watching the same movie.
I would rather watch this great movie than experiment with a movie that's subpar. Which there's a lot of movies that I've been like, that was a complete waste of my time. Why would I risk the waste of time when I can watch something that'll make me so happy? Anyways, all this hype for The Count of Monte Cristo.
It is a great film.
It is such a good
Albus
movie.
Dumbledore's in it.
Oh my goodness, my life was changed. I'm gushing over this film. Like I could stop this podcast right now and put it on and
it's a good
watch
movie.
It all night. It's worth.
Go watch Prince of Egypt and Count of Monte Cristo if you learned anything.
Sleepover. It's so good.
It is
Anyways, this man was betrayed, and he was put in a situation that was completely unfair, and comes out of it conqueror. And he gets to the point where he's teaching his son that he doesn't even know is his son a lesson at his birthday. Mm-hmm. And do you have the quote?
I believe so.
If you don't mind reading it.
Let's see.
Anyways,
where did I put it?
It's all about conquering the storms that life throws at us. Because we all go through storms. Anyways, Elijah's going to read it. Super good quote.
Okay, here's the quote. It says, "Life is a storm, my young friend. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered on the rocks the next. What makes you a man is what you do when that storm comes."
So good!
That actually comes from the book directly, too.
Oh, yes. Okay, Elijah's read the book and my mom's read the book. They've both told me the movie's better.
The book is very, very long, and I actually agree with Meg's mother. The movie is better.
I'm not even going to read the book, and I'm such a reader. I can't even go there. I cannot ruin this perfect story in my head.
It's a good story.
Anyways, it's a story of just conquering and facing the tragedies that life has thrown your way, and coming out better and stronger for it. And
go ahead. Sorry.
So anyways, what I was going to say is when storms come your way, that is when you get to decide what you are really made of and choose what you're going to do with the storm. And you can turn it into sunshine again. I know you can.
Rocky Balboa rephrases it a different way, and he's like, it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's about how much you can take and keep moving forward. And then he goes, that's how winning is done. So, in essence, I love The Count of Monte Cristo and Rocky for both of those. Yes. I mean, such good films.
So inspirational.
This is very, very like Hollywood podcast episode today.
So good though.
But one of the things that I want to make mention too is, so we were in Idaho for 2 years. And I like beat myself up over this over and over. I was like, man, what a waste of time. Like I'm 2 years behind. This is something that you need to recognize, is that God's timing is perfect. If you believe that you are 2 years behind, or you believe that you should have, or that you wish you would have started sooner, stop. Stop this negative thinking and recognize that you are exactly where you need to be. And then now take the action that you need in order to live the lifestyle that you want to live, because God's timing is perfect. I think it's Elbert Hubbard who wrote A Message to Garcia. So good. But he also wrote something along the lines, and I might butcher this a little bit, but he says, it's never too late. Remember that Noah didn't learn how to build a ship until he was about 900 years old. So don't give up now. And keep working, keep trying, keep trusting, and move forward.
I love the idea that it is never too late to change. And I think that is one of the tricks and the fallacies of our negative thinking a lot of times. Where it's
and
like,
the douchey guy that lives below.
Where it's like, it's too late to start. Why even start? You're already so behind. You'll never catch up. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I don't care if you're 99 years old and you're going to die in 2 days. Make tomorrow great. Fix everything.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's been the biggest thing, that as we've transitioned and as we've taken charge of our life, is one, it's never too late. But two, make every day worth it. Make every day the best day of your life.
I like
Need
that.
we say more?
Need we say more?
Okay, so takeaways from this podcast. Go watch The Prince of Egypt, Count Monte Cristo, and Rocky. Anyways, in all reality, we love you guys. We are so grateful to be back. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. Please hit that subscribe button. Yes. Please tell your friends. If you found this insightful, share it with others, but also leave comments. Like, if there's anything that we can help you with, if there's anything that you are going through that we can even shed some light on, let us know, because we would love to help in any way that we can.
And until next time.